So there's this new report out from the AI Now Institute for 2025, and it paints this really interesting, kind of contradictory picture of where we're at with AI. Today, we're going to break down their central argument that the massive power AI companies seem to have might not be as solid as you think. And this quote right here, it just gets right to the heart of it. On one hand, you got a handful of tech giants using AI to lock down an incredible amount of power. But, and this is the key part, on the other hand, the report says that power is actually pretty fragile, and it's totally open to being challenged. That's the tension we're going to explore. The entire report, honestly, boils down to this one simple question, pulled right from its final pages. And really, it's a question for all of us. Because before we can even start to talk about what's wrong with the path we're on, we got to ask ourselves, what kind of world are we even trying to build in the first place? So, yeah, let's start right there. The report kicks things off by laying out this vision for the future, a set of values that, they figure most of us would probably agree are pretty good goals. A world with good jobs, right? Where work has dignity and actually pays you enough to live on. A world where we have real freedom and autonomy, not just in our personal lives, but in our economic lives too. And finally, a world with security, where the basic stuff we all depend on, our infrastructure, is reliable. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Okay, so that's the dream, but here's the reality check. The report argues that the path AI is on right now is completely at odds with that vision we just talked about. Let's dig into exactly where things seem to be going off the rails. And this slide, wow, it really lays out the contrast, doesn't it? The vision is for technology that supports good wages, but the reality the report finds is wage depreciation. We want tech that empowers workers, but instead it's being used to second-guess and undermine their skills. And maybe the scariest part, instead of worker safety, we're seeing intense surveillance that can create some seriously dangerous working conditions. And this graph shows that's not just a theory. The report pulls from a Senate investigation that found at Amazon, where this kind of algorithmic management is everywhere, workers were almost twice as likely to get injured as people doing similar jobs elsewhere. This has a real physical cost. And this conflict goes way beyond just jobs. The vision is for economic freedom, but the reality can be things like surveillance pricing, where an algorithm might jack up the price of a flight just because it knows your laptop battery is about to die and you're getting desperate. And instead of resilient public systems, we're seeing all this critical tech concentrated in the hands of a few companies, creating massive single points of failure. That's a huge risk for everybody. So the big question is, if this path is so obviously not getting us to the world we want, why on earth are we still on it? Well, the report argues it's because of these really powerful stories, these narratives that make it all feel like it's inevitable. Let's unpack those. A huge piece of the puzzle is this idea of artificial general intelligence, or AGI. The sci-fi stuff, a hypothetical AI that thinks just like a human. The story we're constantly told from the industry is that this isn't just some far-off dream, it is just around the corner. But when you actually ask the AI researchers, the people building this stuff, you get a totally different story. The report points to surveys where a whopping 84% say the tech we have now is not going to get us to AGI. And 76% think just making our current models bigger and bigger probably won't work either. There's a massive gap between the hype and the actual science. So why keep pushing the AGI story? According to the report, it serves a really important business purpose. It justifies the astronomical costs, like the insane amount of energy these data centers consume, by promising this godlike payoff in the future. It's a great story that kind of distracts us from the real-world problems and limitations of the AI we have right now. Okay, so let's follow the money, because the report claims tech companies aren't just building tech, they're building a rigged market, a market designed to make sure they win no matter what. They call it a heads-I-win, tails-you-lose game. And this is the core idea of that heads-I-win, tails-you-lose model. It's a system where these companies get to privatize all the profits when things go well. But the costs, the risks, the environmental damage, the strain on our power grids, well, those get socialized. They get pushed onto the public, onto us. So how do they pull this off? The report lays out this 4-step playbook. Step 1, create a sense of crisis with huge projections for how much energy is needed. Step 2, use that urgency to get massive public subsidies and tax breaks for your data centers. Step 3, pass the bill for upgrading the power grid onto everyday people through their utility rates. And the whole time, Step 4, lobby like crazy to kill any regulation that might level the playing field. And the scale of this is just mind-boggling.
The report points to a Goldman Sachs estimate that we're looking at a 160% jump in power demand from data centers by 2030. To put that into perspective, that's not just a little extra juice. That's like adding the entire energy footprint of several European countries to the grid. That has enormous consequences for everyone.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty bleak, right? But here's maybe the most important part of the report. Its core message is that none of this is set in stone. This path isn't inevitable. It argues that there is another way forward, but it means we have to actually fight for the future of AI we want.
And they don't just point out the problems, they actually propose some real solutions. Things like having clear, hard and fast rules to ban the most dangerous uses of AI, creating truly independent oversight so companies aren't just grading their own homework, developing new tools to break up monopolies and de-rig the market, and even hitting pause on new data centers until we have basic protections in place for communities and the environment.
So this brings us full circle, right? Back to that fundamental question of power. If the future of AI isn't already written, if this path isn't the only one we can take, then the real question is who gets to hold the pen? Who gets to write what happens next?